Hello. It ain't half hot mama. I don't know if you know this, but it ain't half hot mama. And if it is half hot mama, I'm gonna be fucking mad. So don't even start. If it ain't half hot mama, I don't even care. You can take it back to the factory. Hi, Lilywatergrave. Welcome to the stream. It simply is not half hot mama. Hot half mama. You're glad the hot sauce is still there? I like to think that I'm doing an episode of Warframe themed Hot Ones and you're the people I'm interviewing. Like I'm making you drink this and then talking to you about the High Medieval era. Half hot, it ain't mama. Ain't mana half hot, it not. It ain't half hot mama. Mama hot, it ain't half mama. It ain't half hot mama. Ain't it hot half mama? Ain't it half hot mama? Hey, Red Panda Rascal, I recognize you from Tumblr. Welcome to chat. I know a spell. If you post a link to Tumblr and watch Cartoons Online website, you get banned instantly. Did you know our Lord Jesus Christ and St. Peter went or rode over to Bratbro? St. Peter's horse got a dislocation or sprain. Our Lord dismounted from his horse, blessed St. Peter's horse with the dislocation or sprain, blood to blood, joint to joint, so received St. Peter's horse healing in 3 names, etc. Hey, thank you for the subscription. And thank you, Blessed Feline. I was wondering where the fuck that quote came from. Oh my god, you actually got banned for that? That's wild. It has to have been like... It has to have been like picked up by an algorithm, right? In our group chat, James has just posted a picture of like French fries topped with what looks like sliced hot dogs, like sliced sautéed hot dogs, and a Caesar salad with cucumbers in it, I think? Jamie's at a con right now. You posted the link and then your blog was gone. You can do this to the blogs of people you hate if you have the login info. We should do more fucked up magic shit around Mardi Gras. Coming in to CT talking about food, like it's just fuel. I have sensory problems kind of person in these combos always feels so foreign. That makes me feel genuinely sad when people are like when people like have trouble eating food. It's such a like important. Hang on, there's like people outside my window. I gotta fucking close this. I don't know. I've met a lot of people that have like sensory issues with food and have trouble eating it. And I always take that as like, I think a lot of people just don't have the language to think deeply about the things that they put in their body, especially if it's like an unpleasant experience. It's not something that you want to like, it's not something that you're rewarded or incentivized to think about deeply. But I think, like, I have some very autistic friends, and figuring out the types of things that are fun to eat and like helping them develop recipes for palates that are sensitive to textures and tastes is fun. I enjoy doing that. Rosemary registers as spicy to you? You do have a curse. That's fucked. That's not, like, that doesn't just feel like sensory problems. That's like, you got some neurological going on. That's fascinating. This is how you feel about stew. People love stew, but you can't stand it. There's so many different kinds of stews. Rosemary is like, spicy isn't the word, but adjacent to the correct word. Tangy. Rosemary. Rosemary is like, to my palate, it's very like delicate. Zesty. That's a good word for it. Yeah. It's like a delicate, almost citrusy flavor. You don't like soup you can't see the bottom of? There has to be a stew that you like. There just has to. Because a stew can be anything. A stew can be like literally anything you can put in a stew. Just thicken that shit with flour. Is that the definition of stew? That it's like thickened with flour? There's some definition for stew that I always forget. Tried to get into cooking, and the process of modifying recipes usually left me with just the core component, like a plain steak. Yeah, that makes me... Aw, hey! Thank you for the gift sub. Thank you so much. Isn't Japanese curry based on a British stew that was influenced by Indian cooking? I don't know. That's interesting. I'd have to look into that. Come back with my findings. Yeah, Absol, that's interesting. Like, having to modify recipes that just leaves you with the core component, like plain steak. Interesting. Like, how are you about sushi? Like, sushi has a very, like... It's called the aesthetic theory of taste, where it's like, you know, just a rare steak cooked with a little bit of salt and butter, and that's it. Like, it's a theory of taste focused on the idea of making a steak taste as steaky as possible. And it's something I associate a lot with sushi, especially sashimi, where it's just like a very finely cut little slab of fatty tuna on a little bit of rice. Yeah, you ought to try more sushi. Like, I think especially for people with sensitive palates, it's like, try to find things that are like the things you already like. You know, don't get too crazy right off the bat, you know? Follow this one girl who can eat like 12 total things and is trying to make as many different foods as possible. Yeah, that's like, I don't know, that's an important part of cooking, is just there's so many different ways that you can use a handful of ingredients. I mean, there's the common joke about Mexican food that it's like the same 7 ingredients that you can... It's like the same 7 ingredients, that one TikTok that's like... like, es tomato, y queso, y crema, etc., etc. But also, it's like the more you look into any cuisine, especially Mexican food, it's like fucking the getting properly into Mexican food opens up the door to mole. And that's like whatever the fuck the Indian people are doing with curry, like all the sheer complexity and like constant small developments that people do with like curries and stuff, Mexican people are doing with mole. You're also a super taster? Interesting. Interesting. I would think that a super taster has to just like you've got to balance your seasonings really correctly, right? You can eat pickles by themselves, but if you put food in them, making me want to get into mole. Good. Dude, get into mole. Mexican food is like the most underappreciated cuisine on the planet. Especially if you live in like the Northern Americas. It's like Mexican food is everything Mexican in America is like everywhere and completely underappreciated. There's so many wonderful things about Mexican food that are just like completely unappreciated by American audiences. Live in Finland, you put Parmesan on tacos there. You don't like I'm sure you have a dish that you call tacos. It's not tacos. Although Parmesan is not, like, out of the question for tacos. There's a, like, in the sense that, I mean, you're not getting fucking cotija in Finland, I assume. But there are a lot of Mexican cheeses that are, like, sharp and salty that, and Parmesan is, like, a good substitute for if you don't have it. Like, I could see it. It's possible. It's still kind of culinary heresy. You don't even have tomatillos? Sad. I love a fresh salsa. Fuck, I should make salsa today. I'll do that after stream. Do you not have feta up there? Yeah, feta's also close. Hey, a hype train. Thank you, everyone. I'm not even 10 minutes live, and you're already doing some fun shit. That's another, like, part of Mexican cuisine that's just completely underappreciated is fucking goddamn, like, all the different Mexican cheeses. It feels like one of the elements of Mexican cuisine that white people should be able to appreciate more, and as a very pale person myself, I fucking love Mexican cheeses. Doing some fantastic stuff with skim milks down there. Been eating batch-cooked buttered and Parmesan noodles every day for the last 2 months. I'm saying this only to make CT sad. No, that's a good base. Like, that's, like, buttered Parmesan noodles is, like, a solid base. If you can add, like, just find one more thing that you can add to that. You know? Like, get some shredded chicken or something. Can you eat shredded chicken? Because at that point, you're getting close to a parmigiana. No, it doesn't make me sad when people eat like simple meals. Like I fucking love a cacio e pepe, which is literally just like buttered noodles with black pepper, a little bit of Parmesan. Yeah, some frozen peas, some sautéed carrots. Yeah, get some ground beef. Like if you can make one dish, you can add an ingredient to it. And then you can, like... One of my favorite things about cooking is that every skill makes you better at every other part of cooking. It's not like my job, where it's like, if I learn one thing about the medieval era, it doesn't mean that I know more about every other era. It means that I can, like, notice some trends, but it's very specific. But cooking is fundamentally just the art of balancing flavors and setting things on fire in specific ways, and so the more that you learn about one dish, the more that you learn about every other dish. It's very cool in that way. You love putting ground beef in it, you just hate cooking it? Okay, but, like, what part do you hate about it, you know? That's the other part, is like what are the obstacles that are keeping you from it? Is it just like the fact that the time? It goes pretty fast. If you cut the sizes down. Yeah, chronic illness. Okay, if there's chronic illness at plays, like meal prepping is your best fucking friend. Like finding something where you can just sit there and then like prep a lot of different ingredients. Like I do that that's part of how I eat, is I make like big Tupperware containers full of individual fucking like ingredients for Mexican food. Like I'll have a jar of what is it called? The like sausage filling thing. I love this shit. I eat it like every day. It's like bright red. Chorizo. It's like I'll make a thing of chorizo and onions, and then I'll make a thing of like chopped onions and cilantro. I've got a thing of like pickled red onions and carrots. And I keep them all in separate jars, so it's like, oh, if I have some extra rice, I can just like I can throw a handful of everything into a burrito and then just like make that for lunch. You should post and scramble more? Nah, I'm not gonna. Cooking is like the one thing that I don't like make content about. I like talking about it here because it's easy, but this is for me, right? I don't want to become like a person that's famous for my cooking takes, you know? I don't want to I never ever want to have an obligation to like make content about cooking. It's just a thing that I like. This is the hobby that keeps me sane. Maybe if I'm particularly proud of a recipe, I might post it, but it would be like in the Discord where it's like relatively private. Hey, Cinemachine. Cinemachine, was it you that drew that fan art of like female Sanji? Hi, Ellie. You need the Discord? Well, you can use command !_ just Discord to check that out. Yeah, join the Discord if you like talking about this shit. Well, Cinemachine, that fan art was fantastic. Started making mac and cheese from scratch a couple weeks ago. It's so beautiful. Yup. Yeah, grating cheese is a little bit tedious. If you have a food processor, that makes it easier. Your art is good, though, Cinemachine. Yeah, you're, like, genuinely cracked at making art. Making mac and cheese. Yeah, we had her deriving mac and cheese from first principles. Like grating cheese, but cheese is expensive. Yeah. That's why I only really make baked mac and cheese if I'm, like, cooking for a group of people. Want to get one of those crank graters you can just drop a brick in and spin a crank? Yeah. That's kind of my rule for... Like, okay, my rule for kitchen gadgets is that if I break something trying to prepare an ingredient, like if I'm using like a normal cheese grater or something and I break it trying to prepare cheese, it's like, okay, maybe I should consider getting a special tool for this. Never understood the American custom of mac and cheese. It's just macaroni and cheese, like a macaroni casserole without the ground meat. It can have ground meat in it, but it's generally like the idea is that it's like a cheap filling food that like your mom makes if you have like 10 kids on a farm. This is an interesting rule, Lamau. Okay, you gotta understand how my parents treat the fucking kitchen in our house. Like, a couple years ago, my parents like remodeled the kitchen, and it's gorgeous. Like these beautiful like granite soapstone countertops and stuff. My dad bought the most powerful range that you can buy without having to rezone your house as a restaurant. It's fucking crazy. My parents, like, never cook. So I have what is effectively at my disposal a professional grade kitchen. Like, but here's the thing. My dad is maybe one of the worst cooks I've ever met. The last time that he cooked for me was like 10 years ago, and he made he bought like a package of grocery store frozen tortellini, and he boiled it with hot dogs, and he poured like a couple tablespoons of maple syrup into the water, so it was like, and then he overboiled the hell out of it, like way longer, so everything was just kind of gloppy and sickly sweet. It was like, my brother and I each got a bowl, and we kind of looked at each other. Oh, and he served it like with a ladle, so it was like floating in like like hot dog water broth, like sweet brine. And my brother and I kind of looked at each other, and we looked at our dad, and then it was like, "I'm so sorry. We're gonna go get in and out." Like, it was past that point of politeness. Like, I'm a firm believer in, like, if somebody cooks a meal for you, you fucking eat it. It doesn't matter what it is. But my brother and I, like, we sank our fucking forks into this thing, and we were like, it would be insulting for us to tell you that this is good. Like, for us to, like, lie to you and say that this is a good meal would be, like, insulting to you as an adult human being. So we're just going to accept that this is, we're going to gracefully accept the L and go get some hamburgers. But I have access to this wonderful kitchen, and because of it, I've been able to become a pretty good cook. Although, did he eat it? Yes. Yes, he did. My dad has, like, no culinary taste whatsoever. Hey, Kyralis. Thank you for the sub. My mom is, like, a very solid cook. Like, she can sit down and make a meal for people. When she locks in, she's a good cook. But a lot of it is, like, you know, whatever the recipe on the back of the box is, which is never, like, bad, you know? But I'm definitely more, like, I enjoy experimenting as a chef. I like trying weird shit and figuring out new techniques. Like, I've been experimenting with Indian food. How do you even come up with the idea of pouring maple syrup in hot dog water? You grew up in Las Vegas in the 70s with, like, broke-ass parents. Like, that, seasoning things with seasoning boiled pasta with maple syrup is like that's like a poor white people thing. It's like an Inland Empire poor white people thing. Yeah, recipes on backs of boxes are always, like, passable at worst. Oh, those West African pounded rice balls look so good. We're not calling it that, Ellie. We're not calling it Philosophy Friday. Although you should brush your teeth, that's important. At one point, I did figure out my own recipe for miso soup where the vegetables were put in last so they didn't become too mushy. That's the fucking play, dog! That's how you do it. It's figuring out how to manipulate the ingredients so they're in a form that you enjoy. That reminds me of when my wretched ex argued with me that you didn't have to follow the instructions on the box and failed to make pasta. Yeah. Always follow the recipe as close as you can the first time. Once you've learned how it comes out in the end, then you can start to modify it. Always try to follow it to the letter at least once. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's enough yapping about food. It's time to yap about something else. Today we're just relic hunting. But, so, before I begin, before we jump in, do you have any questions about the medieval era? About magic in the medieval era? Hey, world's smallest creature. Let me... You guys have been freeloading on my knowledge this whole time. Why don't you open the floor for once in a stream, huh? I say that like you're not, like, giving me money to do this. It's the date range for High Medieval. 10th, like, year 1000 to 1300. You got the early medieval, which is like the 7th century, which is like the 7th century to the 10th century, and then you've got like 10th to 13th. That's the high medieval era, and then you got the late medieval era, which is like 14 to 16, because at that point you hit the Renaissance. Talking about medieval Europe or Asia? Medieval Europe. Hey, Rex Yaldabaoth. Welcome to chat. Might be a big question, but what's the deal with the Hands of Glory? Grimoires? Oh, you fucking bet, Concrete After Rain. Was Muslims doing magic at that time? Muslims doing magic at that time is where Europe got, like, the European grimoire tradition. Like, it comes from, like, collected books of scientific knowledge from the Islamic world. We'll talk about that. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Baghdad, from, like, the early medieval era, Europe was, like, a shit place. We don't know, like, anything about it, and it's because like, all the cool shit was happening in the Middle East. Who was the main wizard guy of this specific period? Now, okay, so if you've ever heard of people drawing a distinction between, like high magic and low magic, it's this period where it comes from. It's basically, like what we talked about last time, the story of the early medieval era is like half-converted peoples. You know, it's like the church is suddenly like, basically the Roman Empire falls, and the church is the largest organization for, I don't know, just people who can read. And so they start expanding to fill the gap. And we get the beginning of the feudal systems and the earliest vestiges of what will eventually become the Holy Roman Empire. Is my idea that the Crusades caused a lot of Middle Eastern knowledge and culture to reach Western Europe? Yes and no. Like, it's kind of both. Because for a while, the Umayyad Caliphate owned Spain. And then around the 8th, 9th century, don't quote me on that, the Reconquista started, and you got, like, Christians and Muslims interacting a lot more, but in, like, a relatively peaceful way, even though it was also pretty brutal. But, like, while the Crusades were happening and all the various wars in the Near East were going on, the, like, Muslim scholars were trading with their Jewish and Christian counterparts in Europe and other places. Like, don't get it twisted. Like, oftentimes these people knew each other. Like, they're not very far away, and oftentimes we're like, hey, Zuckboy, welcome to chat. What did the layperson think magic could do? Like, what did they think magicians could do? That is a fucking excellent question. So, basically, what you gotta understand is that magic was real and common to these people. Like, to the medieval church, magic was a present and constant threat. Like, to the point where, even in the early medieval era, like, most of our sources on magic come from what are called penitentials. Like, a book that is for use for priests, for, like, if somebody comes into confession and they say, like, I did magic, and then the book, you're supposed to, like, look up magic in the book and then say, like, okay, here's your penance. Say some Hail Marys, fast for a couple days, pray really hard. That is where a lot of our understanding of magic comes from. So it's clear that, like, and, okay, when early medieval priests say magic, a lot of what they mean is, like, half-converted pagan peoples. Because the story of kind of the high medieval era is there's this friction between the bishops in Rome who are trying to enforce strict orthodoxy, and the bishops on the frontier, out in the boonies in the Celtic provinces and Gaul and whatnot, who are made a lot of compromises in the name of conversion, right? They're like, listen, we got the people to show up for church. We reconsecrated their spring festival. It involves some goat skulls, but they all call themselves Christian and think of themselves as Christian. So don't, it's fine. Did people see local magical threats coming from people doing magic or from creatures? It was from people. Magic was a thing that people did. By and large. There was... Or at least I can't actually prove that. I haven't read a lot of these missives myself. I can't read Middle Dutch. I have to trust what Richard Kaischeffer says about this. So, but my sense is that most of it comes from people, because the actual social phenomena here is people engaging in what are, effectively Christianized pagan traditions, right? But that's also just, very common. That's not gonna not happen. How much of Wizards were the Knights Templar? It was basically every piece of evidence I've seen about the Knights Templar is that it was entirely made up polemics against them. Well, we'll talk about it. So you've got this... So as we progress to the high medieval era, the Catholic Church begins to enjoy a new type of privilege, and that is that they get integrated into the various legal systems of the feudal systems, right? Heresy wasn't just something you could get in trouble with your priest for. It was literally illegal, and you'd be tried by an ecumenical council, and then if they found you guilty, they would hand you over usually to secular authorities, and then some guy who worked for the king would cut your head off. That type of thing. Not in every circumstance. There really isn't a sense that magic was really... It was never... Okay, at the start, it was not persecuted very highly, right? Yeah, you could be arrested for wizard crimes. Although, leading up to the high medieval era, most places practiced... Or no, that's not really true. That's not really true. So... How do I word this? Because there was also huge magical hysteria. Not quite yet, though. Our modern conception of witch trials comes from, the early modern period. That's, late 16, early 1700s. But that was the culmination of a multiple centuries long, several different threads. Because, the two big changes that happened in, the 11th century, or, the 1000s, was two things. You had the introduction of paper from the Islamic world, meaning that suddenly it's a lot cheaper and easier to write things down, and the introduction of, Islamic sciences, right? Books of mathematics and astrology and astronomy. And there's some interesting tension there. The other third thing, that if you wanna add one, this is the thing that affected the laity rather than the literate clerical castes, is the development of towns. I've been asking my medievalist friends why suddenly towns became a bigger thing, but there was a sort of general transition. A lot of people got to transition from rural agrarian societies into towns, which are they're not cities. Towns aren't allowed to build walls, right? But you have a sort of movement towards urbanization. And so what that did was it meant that a lot of these random governors and burgomasters suddenly had a lot more power, and that includes power over their various judicial systems. So instead of the church managing accusations of witchcraft, it was these burgomasters doing it. And the church did not like that. This was among many of the reasons that they invented the Inquisition, this was just so now every town could have an inquisitor. Because here's the thing. Those wonderful burgomasters, they practiced a system of dealing with witchcraft called the accusatory system, where you could accuse your neighbor of practicing witchcraft, and if they were convicted, they were executed, right? Or it was like given to an ecumenical council and they would determine sentencing. Oftentimes it was execution. But if you accused someone, you were in charge of proving it, and if you couldn't conclusively prove that they were guilty of sorcery or witchcraft, you got executed. And that helped cut down on like frivolous accusations. Okay, chat. Use your inductive reasoning a little bit. Burgermaster, in the sense of like Williamsburg, it is a German word meaning town. So a burgermaster is somebody who is the master of a town, essentially a mayor. So the church had a problem because the church had a problem with burgermasters suddenly having more political power. And so they invented the Inquisition for this. Right? And the Inquisition got to practice the inquisitorial system, which is, it basically means like they're allowed to accuse anyone they want, and they have unrestricted use of torture in extracting confessions. So they suddenly found a lot more wizards and witches. Obviously pretty good for the church, pretty bad for everyone else. Yeah, that bit's not badass. The other... Okay, we're trying to focus on magic here, but the other big reason that the Inquisition was formed was the Reconquista. You know, they would... Taking back the Iberian Peninsula, Spain and Portugal, which had a lot of Muslims and Jews in it. And the Inquisition was... They basically showed up in your town, they said, all the local rabbis and imams convert to Christianity or we kill you. And a lot of them were just like... Fine, whatever. We'll just convert to Christianity. Like, it wasn't for a lot of people. It was like the choice between, okay, do I stay here with my community and like continue being like a source of like moral strength and wisdom for them, or do I just like abandon them and leave, right, or get killed? Obviously, a lot of them just like converted to Christianity, and a lot of them didn't really have a problem with that, you know. And the Inquisition formed out of... Basically, the Christians were terrified that people were falsely converting. Like, just saying that they converted to Christianity, but in actuality, behind closed doors, they were still, you know, reading the Torah and the Quran and whatnot. And the Christians were fucking terrified of that. And so they invented the Inquisition to root out these false priests, right? But the Inquisition showed up after the expulsion order to make sure you weren't backsliding. You might be thinking of the Alhambra Decree, which is later in like the 14th century, but this happened several times in Spain. Like, it has traded hands a couple times. Yeah, it is. It's terribly sad. The Reconquista was like one of the most like bloody and violent chapters in the history of Christianity, and it prefigured the like Spanish Catholicism during the late medieval period and the Renaissance is like maybe the most violent and bloodthirsty a religion has ever been, like, on Earth. Like, it is Christianity at the height of its violence and militarism. And that is the Catholicism that sailed the sea and colonized the Americas and like put Algonquin children into silver mines until they died. Yes, that is the Alhambra Decree. That's in the 14th century. The Reconquista is earlier. It was from like the 9th century to the 11th century. Hey, Ariel, welcome to chat. But it's an evocative period for it's an evocative and interesting period for religious history in general, and it's one of those eras of history that fucking fascists love. Yeah, no wonder early 1900s anthropology perverts like Fraser and Murray were so convinced that secret pagan survivals were real. If Christians in these times were shitting them, yeah, there's so much writing from Christians about like, trust me, dude, trust me, they're actually secret pagans, and they're gonna turn on us at any moment, right? There's so much fucking writing about that like, it's not illogical for an anthropologist in, say, the 18 or 1900s to say, like, maybe they were right. Like, it would be very easy for someone to, like, not interrogate those claims. It wasn't fascism quite yet. Fascism is a distinctly, like, modern phenomena, but it's just, like, this is what brutal colonial religious authoritarianism is. Cough, cough, secret Satanist playing D&D. So that's one of the threads that led to the witch trial thing. Because in the late, like, in the early medieval and high medieval era, like, people were being prosecuted for sorcery, but there was still a cultural understanding that it was just, like, pagan practices that people shouldn't have been doing. Like, a lot of the penitentials, like, the records that we have of ecumenical councils, like, or not ecumenical, ecclesiastical? No, that's the scholarly sect. I forget. These, like church legal councils persecuting people for magic. There was a definite thread that magic was superstitious, that it was like, it was demons playing tricks on people, but it didn't really have any power. I don't know what the actual Latin term is for it. Just go with me here. Go with me here. I'm a hack and a fraud, and I don't know my Latin terms for the various arms of the Catholic Church, even though I'm, like, talking about it on the internet as if I'm an expert. But they were talking about it as, like, it was regarded as superstition by a lot of priests, as if, like, this is a harmless thing, but people shouldn't do it, and they really shouldn't be punished too harshly for it. That's more the position of the sort of frontier priests that were the ones, the evangelists that are actually, like, out and talking to people, and were like, because these people were, like, integrated into their communities, you know? It's like, yeah, maybe your dad traveled from Rome to go preach the gospel to the Celts, but, like, over time, you kind of started seeing yourself as a Celt. Like, you showed up, you maybe married a Celtic woman, you had kids who were half Celtic, and so you're like, okay, well, I know these people. Like, they're my flock. I don't want to kill them for practicing sorcery. Some of the worst punishments for sorcery handed out in the early medieval era were actually from court intrigue. That's one of the, like, the most sensational, like, witch trials from the early medieval period were, like, people accused of working malicious sorceries on, like, the daughter of a duchess or something. It was, like, a sensational thing that involved famous people. And for those, like, the ones that were interesting enough for chroniclers to show up to and actually purchase some, like, parchment, that's what they were writing about, was, like, these trials that involved famous, like, nobles or, like, members of a court or something. Because that's interesting. That's the sort of thing that you kill someone over, is like, well, they were trying to put curses on the king. That we can't handle that. That's sort of what I mean by, like, there was a church official who would determine if magic was happening, but then it would be handed over to a secular council who would, like, determine what the punishment was, right? Yeah, or someone who the feudal lord didn't like. Although, make no mistake, it's like there was a political and social element to this of, like, I have an enemy at court, and one of the ways I can get rid of them is accusing them of sorcery. But this was also regarded as a political move. Like, make no mistake. Like, this was totally understood as something that was, like, real and could potentially have an effect on people, but was also, like, political, you know? And so by the high medieval era, there had been a lot of writing about, like, okay, what is magic? Because the church was kind of in a bind about this. It's like, okay, magic is real. It's like, is magic real? And can people actually invoke the names of demons to bring harm to people, right? Like, if it's something that's actually harmful, then we need to tell people that, like, Christ is still more important than them. But that brings up the question, because people are like, wait, if people are getting in trouble for, like, using demons to put curses on people, that means it's real, and I can do it, right? And then people are like, no, well, Christ is stronger than all demons. Well, and then they're like, okay, well, then why are you worried about demons? What was seen as evidence that someone was practicing witchcraft in witch trials? A lot of it was like evidence of ritual objects, like the construction of charms, what we would understand as voodoo dolls, but the Greek term for it is kolossoi. It's kind of how they view Havana syndrome now in court. Yes, exactly. Looking too Jewish. Okay, people bring that up sometimes when talking about witch trials. Medieval Christians did not need an excuse to kill Jewish people. Like, there's a lot of places in medieval Europe where they're just like, no, Jews are literal demons. Like, they have horns and they, like, sleep upside down like bats. Like, you didn't need to accuse someone of magic if you thought they were Jewish. You could just say they were Jewish. And so there was a lot of internal debates among the clerical caste of, like, whether or not demons were, like, a problem, and if they were, what sort of problem they were. The other view of them was, like, it's all illusions. Magic can't actually hurt anyone, but doing so, like, allows you to lure demons to your... Like, allows demons to lure you to sin, right? By participating in these magical rites, you are allowing yourself to be tricked by demons, and it makes Christ sad, and you have to repent for that. Never heard of the bats one? Oh, this is like... If you want some novel and exotic forms of anti-Semitism, check out, like, the shit that medieval clerics were saying about Jewish people. Like truly, like... You're cracking open tombs and studying the anti-Semitism scrolls to, like, really up your anti-Semitism game. Like, the anti-Semitic shit that people are saying nowadays has nothing on what medieval priests were saying. They're like, oh no, they're literally not human. They're like actual demons. There was some cross-pollination between sentiment against witches and sentiment against Jews. Okay. You brought up something that I'm leading up to. Okay. So, early on, there was this view that, like, magic was just a superstitious thing, and that you were more tricking yourself and you weren't actually hurting other people. But over time, it crossbred with fears of false conversions, right? Like, what if they're actually secretly pagans? And they're not just, like, being superstitious, they're actually practicing a pagan religion. And what if they're not just practicing a pagan religion? What if all sorcerers are part of an anti-Christian, like a secret cult? Like, they're part of a witch cult, right? That was one of the things that evolved in the high medieval era, was the idea that, like, no. Witches and sorcerers aren't just superstitious, they're organized and anti-Christian, right? It was conspiratorial, right? This is where the idea of the witch cult comes from. And then, once you get to the late medieval era, that gets cross-pollinated with these, like, post-Reconquista fears of Jews. And it's like, actually, not only is there a witch cult, but it's a witch's Sabbath, and it's like a perverse and extra evil form of Judaism, which is something that we already hate as Christians. Like, these existing fears of a witch cult got combined with anti-Semitism, and this is, like, fears of witches, like the whole idea of like conspiratorial anti-Semitism now comes from these 10th century, like, it comes from this, like, 10th century combination of the witch cult conspiracy with anti-Semitic narratives around Jews. Does the Templar stuff only show up later or kind of roll into their fear of heretics? The Templar stuff happened... Okay, for some quick background on the Knights Templar, because they're one of the other stories of this era, is like, okay, this is the era when you've got the Crusades, right? The Christian world, for various imperialistic reasons, are like, we gotta reconquer the Holy Land. It becomes this, like, virtue signaling thing. That's dismissive. I'm saying that I'm making a joke because I don't have a nuanced understanding of the material pressures behind what caused the Crusades. I need to keep talking to my medievalist friends about that. But politically and socially speaking, it became a sort of performative thing to support the Crusades and to go on a crusade, right? So there were a lot of people going on crusades, saying like, let's go to the Holy Land, let's kill the Saracens, let's take back the Holy Land. Most of them failed. They got their fucking asses kicked. The Saracens were like completely beating their asses. It was a bloodbath, and a lot of Christians died. There's a great story that Umberto Eco writes about in Foucault's Pendulum about this one crusader who was like holed up in a besieged castle and like trying to fight off Muslim knights, and he had dysentery, and he had to like cut a hole in the ass end of his male shirt so he could spray diarrhea while he was trying not to get killed by janissaries. Which is so fucking happy. It's so fucking beautiful and happy. Yeah, the Crusades iconically go very smoothly and not poopful. I'm gonna pin that. Very good comment. Joining my fucking yucky Crusades. So, over time, a group of knights were like, hey, we've been on a couple crusades, like veterans of the Crusades. We've been to the Holy Lands. They've talked to janissaries. And they've basically said, like, hey, like, all these, like, rich, noble second sons who aren't going to inherit anything, if you want to go, like, make your fame and fortune and not be an embarrassment to your family and go on a crusade, pay us. We will be your, like, we're a knightly order. We'll be your bodyguards while you're going on crusades, and you don't even have to pay us, but you don't, like, whatever your tight, if you die, we take a chunk of your stuff, right? Like, whatever, like, you have to write us into your will, right? And leave us, like, half of your assets or something. So we make money that way. And if we bring you back safe and sound, you get to pay us much less. So there's an incentive for everyone to make money. And this became insanely popular, of people hiring Knights Templar to guard them while they went on pilgrimage to the Holy Land to go kill janissaries and get killed by janissaries and go have poopful adventures in the Holy Land. Now, a lot of idiots died on the Crusades, and you may notice something about that system where it's like, you may seem like there's kind of an incentive for the Templars to just, like, let you die. It was more complicated than that, but they made a lot of money off of, like, idiots trying to fight for fame and glory and just getting killed by janissaries, and then they would show up home and just take your shit. Yeah, it sounds like there was a bit of a perverse incentive there. Maybe a little bit. And they became so politically powerful. Like, they started to rival the Catholic Church. Like, it was that, they were one of the richest organizations in all of Europe. Like, it got that powerful. People should do that with Mount Everest. Yeah, they should. It's a very similar thing of, like, just, oh, you're some, like, rich fail son and your family's, like, kicking you out of the house. Don't worry, I have a big broadsword. I'll take care of you. And it got to the point where, so, okay, this was happening for several centuries, and it got to the point where, like, a lot of Templars were just, like, making friends with janissaries. It was like, you know, that you show up in the Holy Land, like, you've been here, like, dozens of times. So you show up in these Middle Eastern cities that are owned by janissaries, and it's like, hey, Frederick, hi, I'm Ed. On another crusade? Yup. Killing more crusaders? Yup. Yeah, it was literally like writing your Sherpa into your will. That type of shit was happening. Janissaries, Saracens, whatnot. The medieval Europeans just... An armed... Okay, for those that don't know, Janissaries are the Muslim versions of knights. That's just what that is. It's a feudal system. They have chivalry. They're just called Janissaries. So, that might not be entirely true. It's whatever. I don't know. I don't know too much about this. So, a lot of them were just, like, straight up friends with the people, like, the Janissaries that they were, like, fighting against and were meeting in in the Near East and the Holy Land. And, so when they got back to France, basically the papacy and the king were like, you're getting way too politically powerful, because it's like, not only were they rich, but it was like, they were a knightly order of veteran knights. Like, some of the best fighters, most seasoned fighters in Europe, and they were extremely rich and extremely good at fighting. If you're the Catholic Church, you're like, no, this cannot exist. So, they basically made up, I forget when the first Templar trials were, but they basically said, like, you're all devil worshippers. You worship a demon called Baphomet, which is a medieval French corruption of Mohammed. Because if there's one thing that transcends time and space, it is it's French anti-Islamicism. So the term Baphomet actually comes from medieval French people interpreting Muslims as devil worshippers and inventing a demon, like inventing a sort of version of the devil that's an archdemon that the Templars worshipped, which is bad fucking ass. That's cool as hell. That's part of why Baphomet, like that one image of Baphomet with like the Salve et Coagula sign pointing up and pointing down with the dick and the titties out and the goat skull, that comes from the Templar trials. It comes from this like demonized version of medieval French ideas, like intentionally trying to demonize Muslims, which is so fucking cool. Hey, Gold Rider, welcome to chat. No, it's part of why, like, Baphomet is such an enduring figure in Western esotericism, because, like, what a fucking concept, man! Like, I love the idea of, like, it's obviously, like, super racist against medieval Muslims, but it's like, they were making this up to accuse other Christians of being devil worshippers. And the idea of this, like, holy knightly order that, like, traveled to the Middle East and became, like, you know, there's a sense that if you want to take this seriously, there's a sense that maybe there's a little bit of truth to what the to what the Templars were learning, right? Obviously, they weren't actual devil worshippers. They were just friendly with Muslims, and that was the core of this. Oh yeah, the other accusation was that they were gay. That if you read the transcripts of the Templar trials, they're like, listen, this is a knightly order of dudes that are going around, like, sleeping on the floor, wearing holy tabards and armor and the whole time. Yeah, maybe they had a little bit of friend with their knightly brothers, you know? It's not out of the question. I'm sure some of them were gay. It was kind of like, being a Templar was kind of like being a cowboy for the time, where you're able to, like, get a lot of cultural respect, but also exist on the fringes of society where you're not, like, subject to a lot of the inimical laws. Yes, gay pedophiles. That was the other thing. But also there was a sense that, like, being gay was being a pedophile at the time. Like, they didn't have separate words for the term. So there was a lot of like, yeah, times don't really change, huh? Yeah, exactly. So there was a lot of, like, that's where a lot of the persecution of the Templars comes from, right? And they got convicted of all these things, and, like, the Templar Order was disbanded. Some of them got executed, like, literally burned alive. And so there's all these, like, there's all these theories about, like, well, what happened to the Templars? Did they go underground? Like, it comes back to those earlier theories about, like, false conversions that, like, secretly hiding among Christendom are, like, secret cults of devil worshippers. Yeah, colonialism is another fascinating parallel. Why does owing them money matter? Yeah, exactly. What, you think I'm just doing this because I owe them a lot of money and they're threatening my political power? No, I'm doing this for completely pure religious reasons. So where did their insane wealth go? Got confiscated. Although there's like endless conspiracy theories that like the Templars have a secret fund that's been like, you know, gaining interest for all of history, and that there's like a secret 20% of the Europe's political capital is secretly held by Templars in as like a dark money thing, which is also cool as fuck. Yeah, the French king got a lot of it. So that's the other story of the medieval era, right? But also, like, the Templars did not, like, I'm probably not going to mention them in the book. Like, I don't know. I'm still debating that because, like, they're part of the broader mythology of the era, but they're not really doing magic. They were accused of being devil worshippers and shit like that. You know, yeah, so there's a lot of, like, they're not really part of magical history. They're a part of like conspiratorial and mythological history, but they're not like doing magic, you know. But again, like half Christian holy knight, like half Christian, half Muslim holy knights worshiping the devil and being gay sounds fucking cool as hell. It's so cool. So, okay, like, when you hit the late medieval era, the whole witch trial thing kind of kicks into high gear. Were later occultists inspired by the Templars? Oh, yes, absolutely. Like, so part of the whole Templars mythology was that they traced their origins back to, like, so part of the whole Templar, like the connecting thread of esoteric history is that the Freemasons trace their origins back to the Masons who built Solomon's Temple, and they also claim lineage from the Knights Templar in some eras. So the Freemasons were a pretty, like, heading into the late medieval and the Renaissance, they were like it was part of that like social mythology of saying like maybe we're the Knights Templar, right? Like that's part of the idea of how they learned it, where they're like, oh, we learned from the Knights Templar from the original people who built Solomon's Temple. Shamir, let's go. If you don't know, I forget where it's mentioned in the Torah, but it's like there's someone says that like King Solomon cut the stones for the first temple with what are called diamond worms, which like ate the stone or something. True story. My dad said he used to work with a Knight Templar for a bit. He didn't know he was a Knight Templar until one day he was like, "Gotta go out early today. I have a meeting." What kind of meeting? Dude just like pulled a sword and a mantle and stuff out. That's cool. At least a few Freemasons think they come from Pythagoras, and the French translated his name as Peter Gower. That's cool. Well, but also the Freemasons say that they're like everything. Like every person in all of history was a Freemason, according to the Freemasons. Maybe we can switch back to Cedo now. I feel like I dropped some threads. Let's see. You've got the tension between the frontier people and the frontier preachers and the Roman bishops. You've got the development of towns and the development of the Inquisition. Oh yeah, the Inquisition, like, talk about like fueling the fire. Yeah, I'll buy 3 of these. Freemasons are a lot like Turkish nationalists in that way. You guys got any questions? You were saying some real good questions earlier. I'm sorry if I wasn't able to answer all of them. Are we going towards the reform? I don't know what that is. Oh, like, wait, like the... Yeah, like the... Yes, we're edging towards, like, the Lutheran reforms. Like, that, and that was a lot of... That was probably why a lot of the Inquisition was, like, so intense about... It's probably why a lot of them were so intense about this shit, was because there was a growing voices for reform in the Catholic Church. Because, like, they became the, they became the dominant power structure of Europe. Okay, capture? Yeah, let's do capture. And obviously they were, like, doing abusive things with that power. Also, one of the other things is, like... One of the interesting things is, like... What do you call it? Hang on. Collecting my thoughts. Hold on. Yes. A lot of the accusations that these clerical people were making against supposed pagans were almost identical to the accusations brought against Christians by the Roman imperial government, right? Same exact things of, like, you're capturing babies, you're sucking the blood out of them, you're digging up corpses, you're having wild orgies and whatnot, and using them to place curses on important politicians. Like, that's what the Romans accused Christians of a lot of the time, and that's what Christians accused pagans of a lot of the time. And thus the wheel of history continues to turn. Yeah, like, it is fascinating how blood libel was used against early Christians. So, okay, why don't we zoom in a little bit? So it begs the question of, like, okay, well, who was actually doing magic for this period? And it's basically, there's 2 kinds of people who are actually sitting down and doing magic. I will allow orgies, that's fine. It's basically 2 kinds of people that were actually sitting down and doing orgies. Motherfucker. Actually sitting down and doing magic for the time, which supposedly involved a lot of orgies. Wiggles eyebrows mysteriously. It's basically clerics and everyone else. Those are the two big things. And part of the reason that those are 2 distinct categories is that we don't really have primary evidence from the everyone else category. The evidence for everyone else doing magic usually comes from clerical people, the clerical caste, because they were the only people who knew how to read. Oh my god. Allow. Orgy is fine. I'm sorry. You guys are making me annoy my fucking squad. It's your fault. It's your fault. It's your fault. Banning. Banning. Okay. Yes, that's exactly what I needed. Dope. Okay. So, the other thing with the 11th century is that there was, like, a huge surplus of clerics. Like, not priests, but, like, people that were employed by the church and were, like, taught how to read and knew a little bit about scripture and stuff, but not overly much. And these guys are where, like, 99% of our sources for magic in the medieval era come from. Because they were not, like... they were not held to the same standards as priests. And so, like I said, there was that friction between the, like, church clerks, basically. And so there was that friction between like the bishops in Rome who were trying to enforce strict orthodoxy and the people on the frontier. A lot of that friction was caused by these clerics on the frontier who were usually like trying, yes, this is the blasphemous OST, like who were usually trying to like just record whatever was happening, and that involved recording a lot of what were definitely heterodox practices. And then, you know, bishops from the boss from Rome would visit, and they would be like, "What the fuck is this? You can't do this. This is heresy." And they're like, "What do you mean it's heresy? We've been doing this for like 300 years." Like, you can't put like manuscripts of St. Thomas on pregnant people's bellies to help them give birth and then pray over them. That doesn't work. Okay, Tomato Prime handle. I love the Blasphemous soundtrack. Yeah, and there's all these instances of, like, priests on the fringes being accused of... like, being accused of things. Like, there was a record of a... Here, what are we doing? We need to go get more Aya. There was all these instances of priests on the fringes being accused of heterodoxy, and it was... like, there was this one thing that Kai Sheffer mentions where he's like, there was like a priest on the fringes who was accused of like doing divination with bread to try, because somebody stole from the parish, and he was like trying to figure out who it was by consulting bread divination. They didn't go into exactly what he was doing, but there was a priest doing bread divination, okay? And the bishops were like, "You can't do that. It's like, that's magic." And he was like, "Actually, St. Peter did that." And the other priests were like, "No, he didn't. What are you talking about?" Panomancy? I guess that's what that would be. Hey, suddenly sentient. Like, "You can't do that." And he was like, "Actually, I can make a theological argument that the saints did that." And they were like, "I don't think he did that at all, actually." Right. Introduce him to the cheese wizard. Why are you bleeding out? That one guy online who does yes or no based off if a bread slice falls. Yup. But like, that's kind of how magic was seen in like the high medieval era. Was like, there were a lot of priests who were just like doing what was clearly just a local practice, and they were like, "That's magic, you can't do that." And he's like, "What are you talking about? I'm literally a priest." Oh yeah, the other big thing is that this is where the idea of the grimoire comes from, right? So paper was introduced in like the 11th century to Europe, and along with that was the concept of the grimoire. Like, because the Islamic era brought a lot of like books of Islamic magic, and among those was shit like the Picatrix, which whenever you think of a book of spells, like your classic fucking grimoire, you're thinking of the Picatrix. It's like 400 pages of shit like, "If there are rats in your house, draw these astral symbols on a piece of hammered red copper and it will drive the rats and mice out of your house." It's just like that forever. And then you've also got things like, make this potion on this day under this astrological sign, and it will have this effect. And this caused a ton of problems for the already kind of strenuous debate about like what was magic and is it dangerous? Because like, you got this book of like sciences, which a lot of these books contain like pretty useful stuff, like here's when to, if you see the sign of Cancer in the sky, that's when you plant crops, like shit like that. And so a lot of the Christian scholars that got their hands on these were like, is this magic? Like, we don't actually know. Like, horoscopes were a kind of weird gray area already, because like even Thomas Aquinas and Augustine and Tertullian were like, there's bad astrology and there's demon astrology. Like, some of it's good and some of it's bad, but they were like weirdly non-specific about which one was which or how to tell. And so there was a lot of debate over like, well, there's a lot of useful shit in these these Islamic tomes, but we don't really know what is what and if it's magic or not. Your great-grandfather did farming by the phases of the moon? Yeah, people have been doing that shit for centuries. That's heritage technology right there. It was also, like, a little more legitimate because they were like, well, these Muslim guys were right about algebra, so they must be right about other shit. And thus, the European grimoire tradition was born. And it's like, sometimes it was condemned and sometimes it was allowed, and that specific gray area is what allowed it to continue to exist as an intellectual tradition within Christianity, right? It was like, although sometimes you get shit like the Munich Manual, especially in the late medieval era, like right as we're edging into the Renaissance, you've got shit like, no, you can summon the dead. Like, you can summon demons and, like, you can summon demons and they take the appearances of dead people and they like convey the thoughts of dead people to you, which is straight up necromancy, and here's a book of how to do it, and it's definitely not allowed by the priest. Like, although the way that a lot of grimoires sell it is that, like, yes, we're invoking demons. Yes, church authorities say that's banned. But is Christ not more powerful than all demons? Checkmate, clerical authorities. Maybe you just don't believe in Jesus enough. Skill issue. So, if you want to... A lot of, like, fantasy media likes to represent as if there's, like, oh no, sorcerers and priests are different. Where it's like, no. They're... Basically everyone who was writing shit like this was involved in the church in some way. They, at the very, very least, knew how to read. The only other people that could make texts like this were, like, educated members of the noble castes, like like a noble kid or something. And most of the education that they got was, like, from church universities. True pity. They did not do necromancy on that one pope they dug up the corpse of. What the fuck was his name? But yeah, I love the Cadaver Synod. We love the Cadaver Synod. Hey, May. Don't several medieval grimoires involve either purification rituals or tests of faith that use church rituals to prepare the summoner as a good Christian before they start summoning stuff? Yes, which was a gamble. Because, like, it opens you up to being criticized as, like, you are very clearly perverting the liturgies. But also it's like, well, no, this is basically what exorcists do. Like, the church has official exorcists by this period, and that's a lot of what they do, is just, like, they undergo purification rituals and then, like, say liturgies over possessed people. Oh, I need a drink of water. Hang on. And yeah, a lot of medieval grimoires have an assumption that you are a particularly pure person, or that you have to undergo purification rituals to become a particularly pure person, to do necromancy. Ugh. Make sure to have a drink. So a lot of necromancers, like, saw themselves as holy. And when you get to, like, John Dee and stuff, that's absolutely how he saw himself. He's like, I'm low-key a prophet. I'm summoning demons. I'm talking to them. I'm pleading to Christ for magical powers. I'm talking to angels and whatnot, and ascending the divine ladder by myself. Because I'm such a holy and awesome dude. Also, fantasy media sucks because the fantasy warlock is always a fantasy Satanist, with Christian-esque faith in fantasy Satan gives us... Yeah, it's like, I mean, don't go to fantasy media expecting, like, realistic takes on religion. It's like, if you do, you're just going to be disappointed and you're going to like the work less. I think it's just awesome when people are like, I have a demon and he lets me cast spells. I'm really curious about medieval folk magic traditions, though I guess they didn't really write anything down. That is the trouble, is that, like, if you go searching for information on medieval folk magic traditions, it comes from these, like, penitentials and, like, court records. you know? It comes from very biased sources, written by people who were like, you're in trouble for doing this. You've gotten in trouble, you are in trouble, and we're going to punish and hurt you. And, like, there's a lot of, like, every once in a while you'll find something that's evidence, like, okay, I think I mentioned in last week's stream where it's like, okay, we know that in some of the Norse sagas, like, writing the names of Norse gods on bones allowed the hero to, like, resurrect someone, and that, like, the runes were seen as having particular magical efficacy. And then they found, like, a fish's bone that had the name of the god Tyr inscribed on it, and it's like, we don't know if that's magic or not. It might just be some bored Viking, like, practicing his carving. We don't know if that's a spell. We can't prove that that's a spell. And so any assumptions from physical evidence veer very quickly into speculation, like heavy speculation. So it's very, very easy to overstate medieval folk magic. Yeah, maybe it was the fish's name. Maybe the fish was named Tyr. If you read about Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, has some pretty neat ideas about how magic works, but more so gets the vibe of historical wizards so good. I've heard good things about it. Isn't it by the same guy or person that wrote Piranesi? Because I have heard good things about that. It is. Yeah, well, I liked Piranesi's, like, depiction of occultists. Like, the Arn Sales is clearly, like, a Crowley type, which is fun. So I would be interested in Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. I have to finish Infinite Jest first. I'm almost done. I have like 60,000 words to go. I'm almost fucking done with Infinite Jest. I watched Castlevania. I have. It was cool. Good animation. Second season wasn't as good as the first one. Piranesi's really fun. Totally read Piranesi. You could finish that book in an afternoon. How do you know how many words there are? I'm just estimating. Has some interesting ideas about what magic is and how it relates to, like, religion and nationalism. It also has a period English manners drama. That's fun. Yeah, seems fun. I need to finish Infinite Jest. I will not be defeated by Infinite Jest. I'm almost fucking done with Infinite Jest. I'm probably going to finish it today after stream. I just wanted some cool fight scenes from Castlevania. Have anyone else in chat read fucking Infinite Jest? I feel like I'm going insane reading this book. The jest could stand to be significantly more finite, thank you very much. It's not good. Don't read it. Like, everything good about this book is buried under the most, like, fucking eye-rolling... Like, it's so, like, of its moment in a particular... Okay, there's a fantasy series called The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan, and it's basically famous for being, like, a C+ Lord of the Rings copy that's just, like, incredibly fucking long. Hi, Candy. Candy, if you're around, you can hop on mic. You've read Ulysses, which is the same category of Infinite book, but this one's very fun and good. Yeah. Like, fucking Infinite Jest is so annoying. So the records of folk magic were pretty thin and biased, but What are some of the reoccurring themes? I remember reading somewhere that a lot of charms and incantations were to help people steal things like the Hand of Glory. There's basically, like, similar reasons why people do magic all throughout history of, like, I want a girl to like me. I want a rival at work to die. I want the crops to go well. I want the people in my family to be protected from ghosts and ghouls and whatnot. Yeah, Wheel of Time is like nerd homework. It's like, if you really want to read like Lord of the Rings but bad and long, fucking Infinite Jest is like, it's like MFA Wheel of Time. It just, don't read it. It's not good. The parts of it that are good are like so buried under the most fucking eye-rolling slop I've ever fucking read. It's so annoying. Treasure hunting is common. That's a very good point. People love treasure hunting. I love treasure spirits. Or you summon a spirit and you say, fucking, guide me to treasure. Or guide me to awesome fucking buried treasure, or I won't release you. And it says, fine, follow me to fucking cool buried treasure. What is Infinite Jest even about? It's about the dance, like the violent dance between presentation and perception. It's about, like, the distance between how we are seen and how we present ourselves and how much violence is present in there and how much oppression and pain comes from that. Like, it's about media. Like, okay, if you want a good example of, like, so, okay, the best character in Infinite Jest is fucking Mario Incandenza. He's like a flipper boy. Like, I forget why he's like this. I don't think they're super clear about it. But he has like a weird head. He's described as looking kind of like a pig. And he has like kind of vestigial flipper hands. So he can't really hold objects. And he looks a bit like a goblin, right? He's physically deformed. But he's a filmmaker, right? His dad made him like a camera rig that he can wear on his shoulders. And he walks around like filming everything he looks at all the time. And every character treats him like really respectfully. Like they really like him. They really enjoy talking to him. And he's like, people clearly enjoy being around him, right? He's kind of like a physical manifestation of media itself. Like he's a very kind, like sweet, credulous person where it's like no matter what you tell to Mario Incandenza, he believes it on face value. And in that sense, it kind of becomes true in the same way that like something that you say on camera, something that you are filmed doing acquires a kind of truth to it, of like, even if you are misrepresenting itself, that version of you that is presented in the film is like a true version of you in some way. Hi, Riley. And, you know, Mario kind of wanders through the story, and people, like, partially because he's deformed, people just kind of, like, use him as a sounding board. Like, they just, like, spill their deepest secrets to him. And it's interesting. It's cool seeing how the other characters treat him, because it's always, like, the most revealing part of how the other characters, like, talk. But also, there are so many fucking points where, like, David Foster Wallace is maybe one of the whitest people to ever write a book. And there's, like, whole sections of the book that are written in the most god-fucking awful, like, southern African-American vernacular English. And it's just fucking embarrassing. It's so hard to get through. Like, every single time he tries to write in an accent, it's like the most embarrassing fucking thing I've ever heard. It has incredible white boy stink. No, there's one of the first chapters is about like a damn near like minstrel-esque caricature of a black person. like discussing like horrific sexual abuse, and it's like, Jesus, man, I would be so embarrassed to write this. It's so awful. I mentioned it to one of my friends that also read this fucking book, and they were like, yeah, that chapter is maybe the Wardine May Cry chapter, if any of you have read it. It's like almost definitely the worst thing that David Foster Wallace has ever written. But it's like, yeah, it's a book that has like a toll you must pay, but also it's not fucking worth it. Like, it's so long, it's so fucking obsessed with itself. Like, the parts of it that are good are not worth the parts of it that are not good. Can I ask you a brief favor, my friend CT? Yes, what is it? It insists upon itself. Yeah, it fakes realism with easy platitudes. What is up, Candy? Can you show chat the image that you sent me? Let me see. Well, what a delightful image. Here, let me save that. Here, once I finish this mission, I'll put that on screen. Finnegan's Wake is slow, but the middle bangs. I want to read Ulysses first, but I'm still gearing up to that. I want to read Pynchon next. I think one of my main criticisms of Infinite Jest so far, I also haven't finished it, I'm like very near the end, is like, it's not one book, it's like 4 books that David Foster Wallace was like, no, they all need to intersect. Like, this should have been like a quadrilogy. This is actually like 4 books. Because I think if he actually split it up into 4 books, it would have been significantly better. And he like, oh my god, every character who isn't white is like dies of a drug overdose or is like a drug dealer or a criminal in some way, and it's never in like a humanized or interesting way. It's just completely awful. Whenever you hear about Ulysses, you think about that delightful orc. Yeah, we love Ulysses orc. Who are you spiting by reading this? I just like... Listen, I don't like this book, but I don't want to... I figure if I'm gonna criticize it, I have to read the whole thing, right? Because then people can be like, well, you didn't read the whole thing. The final chapter like ties it all together and like changes the context of a lot of things. And I have to fucking see if that's true. I'm not spite reading it, because I didn't go in hating it, but I'm like, I want to see if he can pull this off. Like, I think good criticism has to give something its flowers as well as its lashes, and I want to understand the full thing. It's part of what's fucking frustrating about it is that the good parts of it are really good. Like, every once in a while, like every 80,000 words, you get a chapter that's just like, where did this come from? This is so good. This is so interesting. Like, there's a chapter where, like, Halen Candenza's dad is talking about being a failed actor and about how he's like, they describe his dad like failing as an actor and then going down into his son's bedroom and fixing him like what was it had some amazing turn of phrase that was like fixing up his son as it's like fixing his son into a tennis star like one would fix up an old automobile. I was like, that's really good. That's really good. It's thematically resonant. It's like, okay, yes, this is what this book is about. It's like fucking Halen Candenza is presenting one way. His father wants him to be something. His father sees him as something because of how his father sees himself. Like, it's all people violently imposing images onto each other, and it's I think it's pretty clear at this point in the book that, like, Hallan Kendenza is gonna be, like... He's gonna be like a fucking burnout. Like, he's not gonna make it as a tennis star. Something bad is gonna happen. Have I read Slaughterhouse 5? Yes. There's so much more to say about a work of art that's almost good than there is to say about something that isn't bad. See, that's part of what's frustrating with Infinite Jest, is that it's like an actually good book that's buried under 3 awful books. Is this a different family than the one with the deformed filmographer? No, Mario and Kendenza is Hallan Kendenza's brother. Andrew Hussey taught you blackjack last week? Are you reading Homestuck, or did you actually meet Andrew Hussey? Also, fucking... You actually met Andrew Hussey? Under what circumstance did you meet Andrew Hussey? How interesting. Okay, here. Candy, I will put your image on the screen now. This is what Candy wanted to show us. Disnag, I'm not letting you say that. Don't say shit like that. It's poisoned. Has he had to deal with you not knowing the rules? They're mostly just kind of shy and nice. They seem fine. Do I even have any fucking equipment? Aya. Do not have any Aya. Okay. Hey, no more Homestuck talk. Talk about other books. Got 10 Aya from Void Surplus during the con relay. Cool. I need some fucking Aya. If I wanted to read a medieval magic manuscript, is there one you'd recommend to a noob? Yes, the Picatrix. It's long as fuck. And it's available free online. If you're in the Discord, you can, I can post a link to it. Also, if you're not in the Discord, you can join the damn Discord. Use command !Discord. What made you originally get interested in magic? I think it was like learning that spell books were like literally real. You know, like I learned that like a bunch of people like dug up, like they found a pot in the fucking desert and it had like scrolls with spells written on them. And it made me like why does someone make that? You know, like what were they doing? What were they thinking? Why was it in a pot in the desert? Like I wanted to learn more about why people make this sort of thing. Some poisonal news that may be relevant. I got a 2-to-1 on my literature BA, and I'm gonna be starting a master's in magic and occult sciences down at Exeter. Cool. What's the best, cool, silliest spell you've seen? I do like the Acephalos stuff in the PGM. I love all the illustrations in the PGM. Let's see, what are we doing? Is there anything I can craft? Also a big fan of Rat Copper. Huge ups to Rat Copper. Have you read Anaria? Aniara? It's really good and sad. Swedish poem about a spaceship. Never heard of it. Sounds interesting, though. I don't know, like... I don't know. Infinite Jest isn't good. Don't read Infinite Jest. It's also just, like, it's about so many things that it's kind of about nothing. And not in, like, a fun Seinfeld way. You know, it's about tennis, it's about politics, it's about media. And these couple themes are like lazily trailing about each other, and maybe every once in a while they might accidentally bump into each other. But it's really like... Like, they might lazily bump into each other, but it's just like, it feels incidental when the themes actually come together, which is fucking annoying. I haven't made Scourge? Oh yeah, I've made Scourge Prime. Wonder if someone's done some one-pace shit to Infinite Jest. People tried to edit him, to edit David Foster Wallace, but he was like, no. This is exactly the way I want it to be. And that, to his credit, that does show, but it's not good. Like, he totally should have cut, like, it needs to be, like, 80% shorter. My prime. How important was precision in making the symbols, sigils, seals? Like, how poorly are you allowed to draw something? It was less the precision and more like the fact that you're doing it with ritually significant implements, right? Because it wasn't just like... People didn't just have paper lying around. It was like, okay, you need to make ink out of lamb's blood and then get special parchment and then draw these symbols. Under the sign of a specific astral star. Hiccups. Fuck. Another interesting thing I learned is that the concept of, like, a magic circle being protective did not actually come from the magicians themselves. Like, preaching on magic, like, preaching against the existence of magic and, like, the preaching against witches was, like, a really popular thing for the high medieval era. And a lot of preachers would tell stories about, like, there was let me tell you the story of a magician who did some he wrote a circle on the ground and then tried to summon demons, and they would try to like tempt him with delicious food and beautiful women to exit the circle where he would be devoured. And the idea being that the circle was kind of a metaphor for the power of faith in Christ. And then it's clear that magicians heard that and were like, wait, what if that's actually how it works? Like, what if it is like keeping you safe? Like it's like a cage for the demons, or it's like a protective circle for you. Like, it's clear that the popular preaching against magic is like what gave us that. Isn't it? It's kind of cool. There, in the Kai Sheffer book, he talks about this one instance of like a preacher telling that story, where it's like demons of increasing temptation appear to some guy, to a sorcerer, and at the very end, the devil appears like towering over treetops as this huge figure in the distance, like blotting out the sun. And that's what terrifies him to run away, and that's when the devil heckin' gets him. Yeah, it's literally like the sea bear circle. That's how that worked, or that's how the preacher said it worked. Sorry if I haven't been answering your questions. If there's something that you wanted to bring up, but I drove past it, please say it again. Just while I'm scrolling through my crafting list, seeing what I can make. I'm just looking through things. It's not perplexing me. I'm just thinking about other stuff. Why do the Muslims translate stuff like the Picatrix if Islam is generally a lot more anti-magic than Christianity? Well, it wasn't seen as magic. Like, astral magic, like what we would consider astral magic, like if, you know, like imbuing objects with the like making a ring under the sign of Saturn so that it has the properties of Saturn was not seen as magic by the Muslim world. Like, that goes back to Al-Kindi and his idea of like stellar rays, like the idea that like one of the ways that like the stars just influence the earth, and that's like natural, like just God made the world that way. And so if you want to make a ring that has the properties of Mars, you can make it out of Mars materials. And that was part of the trouble that the Picatrix and stuff caused when it was introduced to Europe, is that it was like it clearly existed in that gray area where people were like, is this magic or is this science? Like, we don't know yet. No, it's not arbitrary. People weren't just arbitrarily deciding if magic was real or fake. It was like they were actually trying to figure out how something fit into the cosmology. Like, there were a lot of very smart people, like a lot of very smart clerics who were thinking, like, okay, if this is true, what does it imply about the world we live in? And if it's not true, what does it imply about the world we live in, right? Because one of the biggest controversies was like, wait, if this stellar ray thing is real, is it natural, or is it like, is that heretical? Like, is that something, like, is it God doing that? Like, is that how God, like, manipulates the world? Or is it just like, because if it is God, then it's something that should be regulated by the church. And if it's not God, and it's just natural, then can you use it to hurt people? And is that still magic? Like, there's a lot of things, like, these decisions were not arbitrary, but they were also not common enough to be like nobody was holding like an ecumenical council on this stuff. It was like niche priests arguing about this and people preaching about it, right? A lot of magic exists in that weird area where it's like it's like really important to some people and not important at all to other people, and so it never really reaches a point of cultural relevance where it's like truly attempted to be like stamped out. Was anything that exists must be approved by God a common take? Not really. Like, not really. Like, there were one of the biggest arguments of the high medieval period was like, how do demons work? Like, how does magic actually work? Like, if we're going to spend all this time preaching about something, we actually need to be able to recognize it. And, like, if we're going to put somebody on trial for this shit, we need to be able to recognize it when it's actually happening, you know? And so what is it and how does it work? And then that raised a lot of questions, and nobody could really reach a good answer, and that just caused more problems. And people eventually just kind of, like, the conclusion that they reached was like, let's just not fucking talk about it too much. Or let's be an insane asshole about it and, like, set people on fire for it. And that you assume a hardline stance of, like, anything I think is demons is demons. You can summon a demon, but you have to be really mean to them the whole time. Yeah, exactly. That was definitely how some people saw it. Here's the church's list of spells for the month. Is there anything else I wanted to visit on? Trying to think. We're probably going to be wrapping it up soon here, so any parting questions? When did the modern conception of exorcist start? Very early. Like, that showed up in, like, the early medieval period. Like, that... The modern conception of exorcists, like, that started when the church was still competing with, like, random pagan, like, folk healing practices. Like, that's basically when Christians, like... They took the whole, like, Jewish emphasis on exorcism and, like, made it like a central tenet of how evangelists existed in Europe. That's a good question. Don't really have any questions, but thank you so much for the stream. Been following you on Tumblr for a minute. I'm glad I finally caught one. Yeah, thank you for showing up. It's always fun to do these. It's always nice seeing new faces in chat. Hey, if you want to catch more, use the Discord. Join that. You'll get notifications of when we're live, and you can talk to other people that know shit about magic. It's fun. Do you think magic has a historiographic importance, like as an era of history that understanding magic is necessary to understanding that history? I think magic is important for understanding religion, because it's almost like... Magic is a sociological phenomena. Like, it's something that happens on the social level, and it's almost always polemic. Like, in the sense that magic is something that you accuse other people of, and that can tell you a lot about the people who are accusing you of magic, and the society at large, and, like, what is considered bad enough for you to be, like, executed for. Like, how bad is magic? I wouldn't necessarily say that it's a key ingredient, because, like, I think truly learning about history is, like, such an... Like, history is kind of the ultimate interdisciplinary field. You kind of have to learn about everything. Like, everything is important in history. How familiar are you with, like, the weird edge of Thelema? Oh, yeah, I know a bunch of Thelemites. A bunch of Thelemites are in chat. Oh, wait. I Freda Rakad, Soranema, Kenneth Grant was curious. like the Kenneth Grant corner of things? Not over much. You probably know more about it than I do. Was there any sort of rubric for determining venerative behavior versus magic? Either folk or high? Oh, yes. It's just like, if you're not Catholic. You gotta remember, this is medieval Christianity. They were not subtle about that. It's just like, is this in the Bible? No, you're a witch. Who is Kenneth Grant? Kenneth Grant is a, like... I don't know. I don't think he's still alive. Is he still alive? He's like a modern occultist. Who, like, within the last 20 years, occultist. Was there any sort of rubric for determining? As a Catholic child, I used Tony turnaround all the time in the medieval period. Would that have been seen as magical? Yes. Yes. Founder of the Typhonian OTO. Grimoires that function like recipes for dogs or mice. Curious if that was common. Yes, that was common. It was also often seen as natural magic and wasn't considered like the sort of thing that you could be persecuted for. Although, oh yeah, interesting thing about this era, they weren't called spells. They were grimoires often referred to their recipes as experiments, which I think is very cute. You recommend any websites to start understanding occult and esotericism and alchemy? Follow Esoterica on YouTube and just like learn shit. Otherwise, it's just like that's a really common question I get, to the point where I'm like writing a book about that. So if you want to throw me some money on Patreon, I think the lowest is like $2 a month. I'm trying my best, dog. Kenneth Grant died in the aughts. Peak of his activity was in the 60s and 70s. Yeah, science experiments are called that because the medieval grimoire tradition called them experiments. Because that's how a lot of alchemical texts refer to their recipes, is as experimentum. Or, to clarify, that's what they referred to their recipes when they were translated into Latin. Yay! Can finally make a Daikyu. Alright, one more mission. One more mission. Here, give me like a lightning round or something. Oh, Dr. Sludge is why you have Shamir on the brain? That's fun. Do I have a Shade Prime? I'm pretty sure I have a Shade Prime. The final mission. The end of all missions. You want to see candy image again? Yeah, we've shown it. We've shown the candy image. Least transcendent magician. Interesting question. Any writing from medieval Jews on magic, or did it all get burned? There is so much fucking medieval writing from Jews, dog, but it's in Arabic. Like, it was just, like, not in Europe. Like, we actually know a shitload about medieval Jewish esoterica. They were a major Jewish esoterica was a major influence on the Islamic esoterica of the time. Like, they were very, very intellectually close. Like, Jews were treated significantly better in the Middle East and North Africa. Besides being able to read, what other major biases are there in historical records about people who practice magic? Good fucking question. God damn, you guys are really killing it. Ooh, I think... Didn't Merkava get preserved by European Jews? Well, yeah, like... those European Jews were the Jews that lived in Spain and probably... like, learned a lot of that shit from medieval Arabic Jews, who were from the Umayyad Caliphate. Like, they were all talking to each other. Make no mistake. Like, European Jews for values of Spanish Jewry in the medieval era is like very, what do you call it? Like Europe came to them. Sorry, okay, about the biases in the historical record. That's a good-ass question. That's really, like, challenging my understanding of this era. Let me think. Like, obviously, literacy is one. The other big one is, like, paper is a little less durable than parchment and papyrus. So, we have a lot of gaps. I would say there's also a lot of, like, the difference between a preacher in rural Gaul and a preacher in, like Cartagena in Spain is, like, those two guys saw the world very differently. Like, there was a lot of diversity within Christian thought that is only apparent if you, like, develop a more nuanced understanding of, like, the sheer diversity of medieval Christian thought. Because that was a huge problem, right? Like, the church was like, stop thinking different things about Catholicism. Oh, yeah, Kabbalah is a Renaissance-era movement. Like, the whole thing about it being, like, an ancient, like, oh, it came from, like, the unwritten Torah. No, it didn't. Like, Moshe de Leon made that shit up. It's cool, though. I'm guessing no, given the clerical aspect, but are there any female mag... Actually, again, excellent fucking question. There are a ton of female Christian mystics. Like, if you look at, like, if you lined up every medieval Christian mystic that was, like, writing crazy shit about Christianity and, like, you know, like, having seizures and talking to God and seeing angels in their dreams and shit, like, more than half of them are female. It was, like, a distinctly... I wouldn't call it a female phenomena, but there was a female phenomena. I named my cat after my favorite medieval female mystic. She's named after Mechthild of Magdeburg. That's a good-ass question. Are there actually so many clerical figures available for women, like, more than now? Did it have something to do with Mary? I don't think so. I think it was just there was a lot of nuns. How's the cat doing? She's good. She's hiding under the bed right now. Mackie. Come here, baby. It's probably sleepy time. Hi, darling. Hello, come here. Come here, I love you. Pets. Hi, Mackie. Okay, go back to sleep. She's sleepy. I woke her up. I feel bad. There were nuns, but also, like, clerical adjacent women who lived in the world but actively collaborated with life in the church. Yes, there was, like, a big tradition of, like, female lay orders, like laity orders. That's the Beguines. I mean, that's Mechthild and the Beguines. But they were, like, they weren't nuns, but they were, like, women who took vows of chastity and, like, ran charity houses, which is fucking cool as hell. Like, they like, hung out with prostitutes and taught children to read for free. Like, I fucking love the Beguines. They're so cool. But the mystics were much more personal experiences of Christ, right? Not as focused on summoning demons or treasure-seeking? Yes, that's correct. But the ecstatic personal experiences of Christ are, like, very interesting. Like, in my opinion, fucking, actually, Mechthild of Magdeburg, like, a lot of these female mystics, like, it has a very sexual element to it, which is really interesting. Like, they frame the yearning for Christ as, like, an erotic thing. As, like, eternally yearning for Christ but never being able to consummate the relationship. Like, that's horny. That's really horny. And it's also, like, I feel like it gets to the heart of what an ecstatic relationship with Christ within the context of Christianity would be. All right, ladies and gentlemen, friends and enemies, I think that about does it for this week. Let me go check, see who else is live. Did you guys have a nice time? Let's see. Who's live right now? Who is live right now? Not looking like much of anyone is live right now, so I think I'm just going to leave you here. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I will see you next week. And hey, before you go, I'm only able to do this because of generous support from viewers like you. If you want to throw me some money, this is my main source of income, this and my Patreon. So, absolutely no pressure, but I would appreciate the support. See you next week, everyone. Bye!